Hello, and welcome to It's Gonna Be May All the Day Long Artist Interview Series. For episode 8, we have Kimberly Hawkey. Kimberly Hawkey's artistry transcends time. With immortal songs from jazz, Broadway, folk, and her crystalline voice, she transports audiences into a world of beauty, offering an unforgettable shared experience, whether solo, fronting an orchestra, or leading her band, the Swingaroos. Kimberly fully inhabits captivating melodies and cinematic lyrics, conjuring vistas of the heart for an age in need of vintage, time-tested soul sustenance. This devotion also informs Kimberly's work as a music educator and events producer, activities she helms under her brand L Music. As the artistic director, she produces concerts, education programs, and music for special events that entertain and bring communities together. Recipient of the Johnny Mercer Award and a gold medalist at the American Traditions Vocal Competition in Savannah, Georgia, Kimberly is also a 2-time winner of the Cabaret Showdown in New York City. Both solo and with her bands, she can enthrall with just her dulcet voice, or if the song calls for it, she'll augment with everything from banjo to washboard to snare drum to kazoo. She is show folk. And without further ado, here's the interview with Kimberly Hawkey. How have your last couple of weeks gone, and has a lot changed for you?
The last couple of weeks. So, if we're looking at from the time of first quarantining, it's actually not a lot of time at all. Because how long have we been in this situation? Like almost,
I think we're going on week 7 for us teaching our kids,
yeah,
but
almost
we've
two
just,
months.
yeah, right.
That's crazy. So, we're talking, 20% of the quarantine. It's actually the last couple weeks I'm finding a flow, aside from one major life change, which was a big move. Or at least half of my move, because I was based in Arkville in the Catskills, and I made the decision late in 2019 to open up a studio in Nyack, where I used to live for a short period of time, and I just fell in love with the area. So I will be moving, but that got delayed. My new lease won't begin until July or August, but I had to be out of my home in the Catskills. So this past week was a little crazy because I had to juggle teaching. I put almost all my students on Tuesday, which was like a
Yeah.
10-hour teaching day back to back to back. And then Wednesday, we went up with the truck and packed everything up. It's in storage. And right now, I'm in Austining at my boyfriend's place, where we've been quarantining almost the whole time, with the exception of a few days here and there that we would go up to my place in the Catskills. But I've got a great internet connection here for teaching and a
Oh,
nice
good.
home office. So we're pretty comfortable here. And it's, we've been getting settled throughout those 7 weeks. So the past 2 weeks, it's a mix between very settled and also just my whole life getting upended and having to move. But
Right.
now we're sort of back. I put everything away and things are in storage and things are organized. I have my desk back, and now it's kind of back to work. My teaching week begins again tomorrow. So I feel prepared. I feel like things are now organized, and it's been interesting, but good.
And you can space out your students now and not put them all on one day, right?
Yes. They're actually over the course. I try to keep them towards the beginning of the week so it feels like a work week. And I have a lot of projects that I'm trying to work on between like writing and developing programming for when the studio opens. I like to have consecutive days to do that, or else I feel that I lose some momentum. So right now I'm teaching Monday through Wednesday, and Mondays and Tuesdays are like my heaviest days, and then a few lessons throughout the course of the week here and there as my students need to change their schedule and whatnot.
Okay. Now, how have things changed for you performing wise?
So it's definitely changed. I'm taking it all in stride. I think, I feel grateful that all of the opportunities that I had, you know, did not really go anywhere. They're just put on hold. So all the collaborations that I've had, I had some gigs scheduled up near me in the Catskills, a regular monthly gig with a wonderful jazz pianist that we do, once a month on a Saturday. That, of course, was canceled. I had some programs that I was working behind the scenes on, like a live radio show upstate. That was one of the first that got canceled. And I had some of the biggest career opportunities of my life get canceled, one
Mm.
including a full program with the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra, which
Oh,
I was
wow.
immensely looking forward to, but
Mhm.
at the same time wondering, how am I going to prepare for this entire concert when I'm teaching full time and I have this coming up and I have this deadline and this. It's so funny because back in February I was sort of planning out my next few months, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me how this is all going to work. And life is sort of like that. You just look
Mm-hmm.
ahead into the future, and you don't know what's going to happen or how you can possibly juggle everything, but you know it's going to be okay. So it was okay in a different way that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it
Right.
got postponed, and some of it was, you know, you know, you don't like to have any gigs canceled, but at the same time, it's definitely a period of reflecting and change, and I'm always open to that in my life. So yeah, it's been different gig wise. I'm very, very grateful for the teaching, as I'm sure you are, being able to just
Yes.
switch to a new platform in an instant. It
Right.
was within a day that we're like, okay, we're doing this online now.
Exactly.
And you just adapt and grow. And in terms of gigs, I obviously haven't done any live shows. I had a one at Birdland scheduled, which was another big opportunity for my band, the Swingaroos, and that, of course, was canceled. But I was able to dive into some live stream performances, which I had never done. And every once in a while, I would post a video of me playing piano and singing. I usually don't accompany myself in public. And people really liked it. Like, they really connected with it, and they realized that it was just honest. There's no showiness. It's
Right.
just connection.
What's your family doing? Has anyone, your family or friends, anyone that you know or are close to, has anyone been affected by COVID-19?
No one has been affected in a horrible way. I would say the people closest in my life have been spared the worst of it. We're all kind of on the sidelines, being very cautious. I have a hunch that it went around my family in late February, early March.
Mm.
And everyone had like weird symptoms, and I had very severe allergies, and then a night of like feverishness. And so who knows? It's very hard to know unless you've had that antibody test, which we haven't had yet. So I think that we may have come in contact with it and came out on the better end of it. So very
Right.
thankful for that. And everyone's just been doing their part, staying in and quarantining and trying to flatten the curve, of course.
Right. How's going out going for you? like shopping, like shopping, just getting like your basic essentials,
Hmm.
getting a little bit of exercise. How is all of that going for you?
I love getting outside. Right now, at my boyfriend's place, we're in a little cottage in Westchester. So
Hmm.
we have some outdoor space. Today, I was out there just sitting on the grass and doing some work, and we're able to go for walks and not come into contact with anybody. Um, so that's been good. The shopping is stressful. And
Yeah,
probably for a lot of people, I notice people get a little testy, or if someone's
right.
standing in their way and they want to pass, it's people are very on edge. So it's kind of a scary thing to go shopping these days.
Oh
Uh,
no. Now, do they have any grocery stores where you live that have the option of you like ordering online and then just picking up what you order, like at a special pickup place or something like that?
Mm, probably. I started to look into that today because we have a Whole Foods not too far from us that I used to
Oh, okay.
go to all the time, but I don't think they've begun their prime shopping yet, at least not in my area. So we'll stand by and we'll see. That's definitely I would welcome that. Any any opportunity to not
Right,
fight my
yes.
way through the aisles.
Now, if you were to change one thing about how you started 2020, knowing that we would all be at home, what would you change?
Hmm. That's that's an interesting one because my response is sort of the reverse. I don't know that I would change anything because um, I'm a procrastinator by nature. And I like have a history of fighting with my own brain to get things done. Like I outsmart myself and it's not for my own good. So that's really something that I've been working on overcoming. I have all these goals and I sit down, I make a timeline, but then when it comes to taking action, oh, I can, wait on this or wait on that. So that's something that I'm overcoming. It's really not serving anyone. And I think if I had known this was going to happen, I would not have been as ambitious as I was in the beginning of this year. January through the beginning of March, I every single day I had a very strict routine, and it's one of the first times in my life that I was able to find this sort of routine that I always wanted to have, but my performing lifestyle was just running around and exhausting and just trying to find normal. And the early part of this year was a little more calm and it let me have a routine. I wasn't traveling as much and I had time to craft my vision for the rest of this year. And I love what's come about so far from that, just in terms of, I have a new business in the works, Elvin L Music. That's going to be the name of the studio that I open in Nyack in late
Oh,
summer, early fall. And that'll be my teaching studio. It's the name under which I contract live music for the weddings that I perform in or the clubs that I play in. And I'm really excited with what the future holds. And I'm afraid that if I knew this was going to be a thing, I would have put all that on hold. I would have been pessimistic about it and felt
hmm,
like, well, why am I going to start something new right now? I don't even know what the future is going to look like. But then that's a lesson, I suppose, because um, I'm I'm happy that I didn't know what the future looked
right.
like, and you never really do. So it's always a good time to start planning your ideas because the world is always going to shift. It's never going to be as you
Hmm.
expect it to be in the end, but you have to still begin and you have to make those moves. And now it's actually working out better. My lease is starting later, which means I have less rent to pay this summer.
Right.
and and I have some new time to develop some of the projects that I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get around to them with such a busy schedule this spring. And just now I have a clean slate. It was just all wiped away. So I think I'm happy I didn't know what was coming. So I'm not sure I would have changed anything.
You would
Um,
still press on and go forward with all of the goals that you started with. Are you a New Year's resolution type person?
Not so much, because I always have some sort of resolution. Every day I have
Hmm.
something that I want to get done. And, my to-do lists have always been pages and pages long of just things I want to try and see and do. And I guess my task has always been to narrow that down and focus on what's right in front of me right now and what's going to have the strongest result.
And so the big thing that you really wanted to accomplish this year was to open that studio, that new
Mm-hmm.
studio.
Yeah, that's right. So I would have moved in by now if, COVID-19 was not a thing. I would have been moved in by now. And I would have had, the summer to play gigs and start planning for the fall. But my income probably wouldn't really be coming from that business until the fall anyway, when I can
Mhm.
start up, a new teaching season.
Right. Well, it all worked out then, since you don't have to really
Yeah.
start till the fall.
Yeah, in a very different way. I still have my time to plan, and we'll see what happens.
What are some artistic things that you're accomplishing now that you have more time at home?
I've been playing more piano. And
Good.
with the live streams, that's really an art in itself. I
Mm-hmm.
find it more difficult to do a live stream of just me sitting here at my piano than to get up and perform live. Because when you're singing in a club in front of a group of people, you either know if all eyes are on you, or you look around and know that person's chatting and those people are enjoying their meal, and I'm going to be a little more relaxed because I know not everyone is like listening to every single
Mm-hmm.
word. And
Right.
I that's how I learned to make mistakes, because I'm like, "Oh, they're not even listening to every single note anyway. I can sort of, make up a lyric here and there." And then you learn how to make mistakes gracefully, and then people just don't know. But you're much more exposed with a camera on you. And I'm sure people at home, they're cooking dinner while they're watching. It's probably the same vibe as if you're performing in a live setting, but you have the sense that all these people are just staring at you, even if they're
Yeah.
not. Like, you just feel like you
Right.
are, especially if you can see yourself on Zoom or whatever platform you're using. It also becomes a mirror, and then you become very self-conscious because you see how you're how you look, and it's kind of, it's a mind twister.
It really
That
is.
was a
And then
skill.
you're like, oh, if I make a mistake, uh, how do I do that gracefully when it's a live
Yeah.
stream, right? Because especially if you're playing and singing, and
Hmm.
you don't really know who's watching, right? Because all you see is a reflection of yourself, so it
Hmm.
can get really tricky.
Yeah.
Do you try
And then
to
every
read?
once in a while,
Do you try to read some of the comments later?
yes, yes, I do. And also, when you see a comment come in from someone you really admire, or you see someone pop up that's like, oh my gosh, now this person is watching me. It's like your idol walks into the room.
Oh boy.
And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just, like overshot that note and this person heard. And then
Oh
it stays
no, that's
recorded.
great.
It stays up on Facebook to be replayed over and over, for better or worse.
What do you do to stay relaxed at home?
I'm big into yoga, And that has been a saving grace for me for the past 6 years or so. It really helps me stay calm and feel like, I have a nice routine. And um, most of the time when I really, I don't even know how badly I need it until at the end of the day when I'm like, oh my God, this is such a difficult day. I'm so stressed, but I don't have time to, take care of my body right now. And then I decide to anyway. I begin to just feel that stress release. And that's when I realize how important it is. But the days that I'm just running around and, oh, I don't have time for that, I'm fine. Like, I'll just keep going. And it really builds up all that tension and, energy just builds up in the body. So I feel like yoga has really helped. The breathing exercises that go with it have been super great for singing. I even incorporate it in a lot of my lessons, the pranayama breathing. And I do a little bit of meditation. I do a little bit of journaling. These are all habits I started a few years ago that have stuck with me. I'd say those are the big ones. I try to get outside, get some air, go for a walk. But yeah, I recommend, musicians, singers, artists to find something physical, even if it's, it doesn't have to be 100 push-ups, but
Right.
something where you're flowing that energy in your body and releasing some tension. And it helps mentally too, I think. I think everything is interconnected.
Do you try to fit that in the morning or right before you go to bed, or just as you have time during the day?
Pretty much as I have time during the day.
Okay.
I'll wake up and I like to have a relaxed morning. That's one thing I love about not having to go anywhere. I never enjoyed just jumping up, getting dressed, and leaving the house. I always felt like I didn't have time to get oriented and to reflect. So I can have a relaxing morning and then I'll check my emails, I'll do a couple important tasks. And then usually before I start teaching in the afternoon is when I'll do some yoga or meditation. And it puts me in a really good place for the teaching too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get very tired out if I don't do it. If I'm running around like crazy or managing chores and things on my to-do list right before I teach, and then I log on and then I'm there for 6 hours, I feel myself just fading and losing energy. But if I give that time to myself early in the morning, well, not early in the morning, but earlier before teaching, I have that to give back to my students.
Now, do you feel like the way that you teach online is different in the way that you're speaking as opposed to when you're teaching in person? Do you feel like you're almost talking louder or you have to work harder to speak?
Yeah, and I've heard that from other teachers too. The
Yes.
first couple times you're like, wow. And also, it's harder to get up and go to the bathroom or go get a glass of water because you feel like if you're not present in your box for the entire lesson, they're not getting their money's worth, or so to speak. You feel like you really have to be present and you have to perform in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sense of throwing your energy rather than just letting it be. And I'm trying to work on that because it is very tiring.
I feel like it is too, because I feel like if I'm not energetic about what I'm saying to them, then they're not really listening. They start to drift off because they're just staring at a screen,
Yeah.
So I try to make everything like, oh, did you understand that? And be more
exactly. Especially the younger ones.
Yes.
Because in person you would point to the page and you have that person to person, you just feel the other person's energy and excitement, and yeah, you really have to work harder. But actually, I don't think you have to. I think a lot of it is our perception. And I think that we can, even right now, I'm like leaning in towards the camera and giving my energy, but I could be right here and I can be a little more centered and use my breath and keep enough energy for myself too to
Right,
get through the day.
exactly. Right. So that you don't get so exhausted at the end of whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that one major difference is I would always accompany my own students, from pretty much from the start to finish. I'm at the piano, and I've realized there's actually a huge benefit to not accompanying. I heard you mentioning to one of your other guests how you record your warm-ups in advance and send it to them. And that's so helpful because you're actually watching and observing, and they have your entire attention rather than me sitting at the piano, like, oh, okay, what's the next chord? And, um,
Hmm.
or just focusing on, accompanying a very, very difficult piece for my student, and
Yes.
they're not getting my full attention, or I can only see them out of the corner of my eye. So I've actually really enjoyed that. And as much as I like to make music together with my students, I think that in itself is an incredible skill for myself and for the students. And that is going to be hard to replace. But all the students that I've been working with for several years, they've had that experience. So
Hmm.
I'm okay sending them pre-recorded music. For the new students that I'm picking up, someday I'm gonna want them to sing with an accompanist and to make music with other people in,
Right. In a live setting.
that give and take. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes
So,
when you're listening to a pre-recorded thing, you start to memorize the ebb and the flow, right?
mm-hmm.
But then if you're leading an accompanist, you'll never learn that until you actually do that,
That's
right?
right.
Because I try
Yeah.
to teach my students how to lead the accompanist because uh, not for all of my lessons, but for some of them, I bring an accompanist in, and the accompanist, she's amazing. She's so great. But she's always waiting for the student to lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the student's always waiting for like a certain note to be played,
Yes.
or whatever for the downbeat or whatever it is in the song. And they're just like, they're so hesitant. And I'm like, you
Yeah.
just you have to lead, and the accompanist
Yeah.
will follow you, and they'll pick up whatever tempo you're setting for them. If
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to get louder, they'll crescendo along with you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's just the experience of letting them know how to um, have that live setting with the accompanist, and like you said, having that give and take and knowing
Mm-hmm.
that feel. And I know it's probably the same thing when you're in a band, because the band is always, they're paying attention to you and what you're doing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, you're giving me like flashbacks right now to when my early days of voice lessons, and even before that, if someone was playing for me. And as a pianist myself, I was always waiting for the pianist. To me, they were
Hmm.
the important part of this collaboration. It
Hmm.
wasn't, 50-50. It was, okay, they know what they're doing. I'm going to follow them. And yeah, I've really had to learn how to lead not just a song, but a band. And that's been an awesome opportunity to have this swing band that just grew very
Hmm.
naturally and organically and little by little. I was lucky to have a great um, music director, Asaf Gleisner,
Right.
and he's just great with vocalists. So I would kind of take my cue from him and I would watch how he conducted the orchestra. And I remember early on we sort of had a conversation where he said, I think you could start conducting a little bit more. And I was like, oh my God, Like that terrified me. Like conducting, I like it's a whole band and they know what they're doing and I don't. But it just starts to happen eventually, and then the music inside and out after a while, and you are the best one to conduct because you know all the hits, and the tempos and the dynamic changes. So that's been a really fun part about singing with a band, something that I'm super happy that I've had the chance to do. And I hope every singer gets to experience that and at least just have one song, like a jazz standard or a rock song that you can get up at an open mic or a jam session and just know how to lead that one song, know how to count it in, know what your tempo is, and how to conduct.
Now, you talked about your goal for the year in starting your studio. Do you have a goal for what you'd like to accomplish while you're staying in during this quarantine time?
I've been trying to do at least one piano voice video a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so far I've probably done 4 or 5 of them. So we're more or less on track there. I want to improve my jazz piano skills. That's been an ongoing thing, but now I'm like, oh, I have no excuse now. I got to do it.
Right.
And there are a few cabaret shows that I'm working on developing for my band, because we do sort of a cross between a jazz show and a theatrical cabaret show with patter and transitions. So I have 2 of those that I'm working on developing right now that are actually on deadline. So they're going to have to get done in the next 6 weeks. So I have to be very diligent about that. And yeah, those are the big ones. I have this small business startup kit book that I want to reread because I plan to form an LLC as soon as I have my new address in Nyack. So I want to make sure I'm just staying on track with that.
Now,
process.
is the studio that you're starting, are you hiring other teachers to work under you? Or will it just be a studio that you'll be teaching, but you'll be doing several different kinds of teaching? Because I know you play different instruments.
As of right now, it's just me as the artistic director and primary teacher, but that is definitely something that I would hope to expand. Not just with teaching. I have a couple days where I'm teaching at another studio. So I'm thinking, okay, I have this space. Maybe I can work with another teacher who comes to my room and teaches out of there. Or I can, form a community or a network of other teachers who, they're not necessarily working for me, but we're referring students to each other in different genres. That's what I hope to see happen. There are some amazing voice teachers already in Nyack, and a few of them that I've been in touch with, like giving them a heads up and saying, look, my hope is to not compete, but it's to, expand and let the community know how important music education is. And hopefully this will be good for everyone. And they're on board, they agree with that. But they realize there are some teachers who would see that as a threat. Someone new coming in and opening a studio in the same proximity, how, people just see it different ways.
Right.
You either see it as a threat or you see it as an opportunity for community and expansion. So that's how I'm seeing Elvenal music right now, is just an opportunity to create community, create expansion and connection with other musicians. I'd love to have a roster going. Right now it's just my projects on it, but I'd love to incorporate other bands from the area. So if somebody calls me and wants music for their private event, I could either hire one of my groups or, hey, we're already playing a wedding that night, but I have these other great artists on our roster and I'd be happy to handle the contract and everybody wins.
Oh, that's so great. Now, what style is your specialty in teaching?
In teaching, I have mostly students who are interested in musical theater and pop, but musical theater that ranges from the legit to the contemporary. I do incorporate some classical technique.
Hmm.
I had a great coach a number of years ago who, instilled that love in me. And while I would not consider myself a great classical vocalist, I still love to sing it and I like to share that joy.
Hmm.
So, I'll have some of my students sing through the Vakai books
Okay.
and, learn some traditional technique. And then I have a few who are a little bit interested in jazz. I'm always careful not to push that on anyone because I don't want to
Right.
be the jazz singer who makes everybody sing jazz. But I have a few students transcribing Ella Fitzgerald solos and learning some standards along with their musical theater and pop repertoire.
Yeah, I think it's healthy for students to be able to at least at least know one song in every genre, cross train their
Mm-hmm.
voices, be able to
Yes,
belt,
yes.
be able to sing legit, all of those different things. If you were to give artists in training advice about the future, what would you tell them?
Start planning out your goals and your dreams now based on personal experience. You're always going to look ahead and see these obstacles and wonder how it's going to get done and um, think, oh my God, my schedule is so full anyway. I'm never going to be able to learn how to play piano. I'm a vocalist who wants to play piano someday, but my schedule is just so packed. But it's little by little. I've been reading some great books on habits and routine, things that as I mentioned, I always struggled with because I love to go with the flow. I like to just wake up and not have a plan and see where life takes me. And I've done that for a number of years. And now that I have an idea of where I'm headed, I need to sort of do the opposite and still invite that flexibility into my life, but know what your immediate next step is. So you always have these steps ready to go. And you take one step, oh, the wind shifted me this way. So that is not going to work anymore. Now I'm just going to have to improvise. So it's all about flexibility, improvisation, and determination. Just always keep that end goal in sight, but don't worry so much about how it's going to happen.
Right, how you
Just
get
take
there.
one step at a time and ask for help when you need it. Call on friends to support you and people who have similar goals. That's why I think it's great to create these communities for other teachers. There's a great Facebook community for online music teachers that has been so helpful in getting me set up with online teaching, giving you tricks, talking about how to avoid fatigue if you feel like you're throwing your energy online. So yeah, I would say just continue ahead with your goals, keep them in sight, but allow for flexibility in your life. And things that seem like disappointments are probably just telling you to go in a different direction, or you just need to go about it in a different way, and
Hmm.
it will
Right.
be for the better in the end.
Can you give a word of encouragement to artists now? Because a lot of them have, like you said, their gigs have been postponed, or
Yeah.
they have lost their jobs, or they're currently not being able to be creative at this point or artistic.
Hmm.
Give a word of encouragement to all artists.
Whatever you're doing right now is just fine. There's so much pressure all the time on creative people to create 100% of the time, but I really think it's, 50% creation at most, and 50%, retreating and learning and letting your creativity hibernate a little bit. And some people have just been going nonstop for years, creating nonstop, and now they're feeling very frustrated. But I think this turning inward is just as important. I can't help with loss of paychecks. That is just very unfortunate. And hopefully, people who need unemployment are getting unemployment and getting support and getting loans. So at least there are a few resources out there. But yeah, whether you're creating or not, it's okay. Yeah, everything is looking different by the day. Everything is changing and shifting. And, I'm wondering if, gigs are going to be normal at all this year. Some things late in the summer are now canceled. At what point are people going to be comfortable being in a room with other people for 2 hours watching a performance? Even when things start to go back to normal, are people going to be comfortable with that?
Right. Oh, that's so
Or
true.
maybe people learned that they prefer doing everything at home. They prefer taking their yoga classes at home on their own schedule, or they prefer teaching or taking lessons at home, or watching music from home. So a lot is changing. And I think
Yeah.
it's going to end up being for the better.
What is a song that comes to mind when you would like to encourage someone?
There are two that one that I discovered, one that I rediscovered during the quarantine. One is a song called We'll Meet Again. And I'm going to have to look up who wrote it. It's no one that I can really remember. But I found it in this magazine that someone gave me all these back issues of Sheet Music magazine from like the 80s and 90s. And it's such a cool magazine. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a theme every issue. Sometimes it's Christmas, sometimes it's Bing Crosby or Judy Garland or Western songs. And it is just a publication of a collection of sheet music, published sheet music, mostly throughout the last 100 years. And it could be all
Nice.
genres. Most of it's popular songs, sometimes they're novelty hits, sometimes it's blues or stuff from musical theater.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this song. It was sung by Vera Lynn, and it was around World War II. Let's see, we'll meet again. Meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. And all the lyrics are just so positive. And I think it was originally written, about a soldier who is leaving his sweetheart and they'll see each other again. So it made me think, oh, all these people that I can't see right now during quarantine, well, we'll meet again and it'll be better than ever. So that song just really touched my heart. And the other one is Smile by Charlie Chaplin. Similar vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Smile though your heart is aching, smile even though it's breaking. It's a very bittersweet song. And, what can we do? We're sitting here watching the news and looking at the death tolls and this divide in our nation and in our world, people who just cannot agree on anything. And we're just sitting here kind of helpless because you can't do anything, for the most part. So what can you do but smile? And maybe by you smiling, you're going to brighten someone else's day. Even though, you're hurting a little bit on the inside, you might have that positive effect on other people without even knowing